How old were you when you moved to Charleston?
We were 25? Yeah,
25.
25.
So you had, before then, you had already basically started from scratch, not flipping cars, but basically an arbitrage play. Developed that, grew that into a $5 million a year business.
That's correct.
You're talking $5 million in revenue.
Yes.
Not $5 million in auto sales.
$5 million in revenue.
That's insane, which is $25 million in auto sales.
Yeah,
something crazy.
It's been a while, but yeah, $20 million or something. Yeah, it's a lot.
Hey everyone, you're watching the Lively Charleston Podcast. Our goal with the show is to interact with and tell the stories of the amazing people, places, and businesses that make Charleston the best city in the world.
If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube.
And check us out on Instagram and Facebook, where we post content regularly throughout the week. What's up, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Lively Charleston Podcast. Y'all are in for a treat with this episode. I am really excited because I have a good buddy of mine named John Crowell coming onto the episode, and he has a really cool story. So he's, in the last basically 2 years, he's done some things that are pretty amazing. My favorite part about it is that anybody can do it. And so when you watch the episode, it's clear, it's obvious he's a very smart guy, but he's putting some pretty simple things into practice, and he's been able to create some pretty awesome income for himself and some long-term wealth. I have actually, as well, just in full disclosure, I have invested in some apartment deals with him. But that's kind of what I think is really cool about the story, is that he's creating a lot of these investment opportunities, and his friends and his family get to participate. So it's really neat. You're really going to like this episode. I hope you learn a lot, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Let's get to it. All right, brother. Well, welcome officially to the podcast, man. I'm excited to have you on. Thanks for carving a little bit of time out of your busy schedule. I know you are quite the busy man these days.
Well, it's a pleasure. You did actually pay me to come here today, so it's the least that I could do.
Please cut that out when we edit the video. That's not part of the process here. Okay, awesome, man. Dude, seriously, thank you for coming on here. I've been super excited to do this. So for those that don't know, so JD and I, we've been friends for a long time. We'll tell that story maybe here if we go that direction, how we became friends. But I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for quite a while. You are a super duper smart dude. I feel super lucky to just have you as a friend and have you in my circle of peers. And I'm very excited for everyone to learn a little bit more about what you've been up to.
Honestly, man, it's my pleasure. Actually, maybe we should just start with how we did become friends.
Should we kick it off with that?
I think you got to start out with a bang. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe you could tell your version. I'm sure just like how you met your wife. You guys probably both have your own separate versions of the story. But here's how I recall: is that basically you cold called me and then harassed me for months and months, forced me to buy insurance from you, and then made me be your friend. And the rest is history. Is that pretty accurate?
I would say there's a slight variation. So if I recall right, you actually called me. You cold called me.
Really?
And convinced me to meet with you over coffee. And then the next thing you know, you forced me to be your friend. Is that not what you?
Yeah, clearly there's some details lost in the over time here, but let's just go ahead and lay it to rest. We are where we are. Okay. There's no reason to be living in the past. Awesome, man. So, hey, we're getting into a bunch of cool stuff. Talk about everything you've been up to, which is really cool. But let's take it all the way back. Start out. Where'd you grow up? And let's take it from there.
Absolutely. So I won't bore the audience here with too much about me, but born and raised in Indiana. Both my wife and I were born and raised in Terre Haute, Indiana, actually. So for anyone that's never heard of Terre Haute, which is probably 99% of the audience, it's about an hour southwest of Indianapolis, Indiana. Born and raised there, typical, conservative upbringing. Both my parents, owned a business and, grew up in that business, which was the automotive industry. So got exposed early on to just, what it was like to work hard, be a part of a business, grow up in that environment, in that atmosphere. And so, fast forward to high school was where I met my wife, Christy, and high school sweethearts, of course, that typical story. And we fell in love. We fell in love, at a very young age. Got married at 20. So couldn't even drink at my own wedding, right? But yeah, so we got married young.
First of all, I didn't know you got married at 20. That's news to me.
I refrained from telling you everything. Of course. Come back and haunt me.
That's crazy. You definitely drank at your wedding. You're fooling nobody.
We did. We snuck in some booze.
You Indiana boys start early, anyways. You're probably 16 years old.
That's right. So yeah, just to kind of make a long story short, just was very fortunate to have that upbringing of being, in a business with my parents, being exposed to that early on. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's always been in my blood. It's how I was raised. And so, I started chasing down old antiques and classics and putting them on eBay when that used to be a thing, right? And that was the first business, right? It wasn't cards for me or, arbitrage plays or whatever. It was simply, I was chasing down old exotic automobiles, putting them on eBay, and then making a profit.
What are we talking? What kind of cars were you flipping here?
Well, I didn't flip them, but I would purchase them and then just put them back on eBay.
Oh, got it. So you didn't touch them up. You didn't.
Like put them on a rollback and like brought them to my dad's shop and like put them on eBay.
Nice.
And I make $2, $3, $4,000, sometimes more.
Wow.
On an average deal. So accumulated some money pretty quick as a young individual, and just took those earnings and parlayed it actually into a full-time business venture, which was automotive. So I opened a small dealership with my father, actually my mother and my father, and we grew that from pretty much zero gross income to over $5 million of annual revenue.
Wow.
At the end of it all. So grew pretty quickly, and typical love-hate relationship of being in business with your family. Started to drive a little wedge between our relationship, which, for me, this wasn't something I was really, really passionate about. It was just something that, I could tell that, I could make some money with, and then I could repurpose it later on. So ultimately I ended up parting ways, which is what all drove us down to Charleston, actually. I sold the company, took the earnings, and then was like, all right, I'll figure it out once I get down to Charleston.
And how old were you when you moved to Charleston?
We were 25? Yeah,
25.
25.
So you had, before then, you had already basically started from scratch, not flipping cars, but basically an arbitrage play, developed that, grew that into a $5 million a year business.
That's correct.
You're talking $5 million in revenue.
Yes.
Not $5 million in auto sales.
$5 million in revenue.
That's insane, which is, I don't know, what's that, 25 million in auto sales?
Yeah,
something crazy?
It was. I mean, it's been a while, but yeah, $20 million or something. Yeah, it was a lot.
That's a big business. That's I don't know what the percentages are, but most businesses, don't clear $1 million. You built a $5 million business, in your early 20s. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it was impressive, but keep in mind the automotive industry is very lucrative, right? So we were financing a lot of the debt on these automobiles or financing the loans. And so that's really where we were making our money, was building the accounts receivable part of the business. So, of course, the vehicles are part of it. We make profit off the sale of that. But really where we made our money was in the lending side.
Interesting. Okay, quick kind of side note here. For anybody listening, if you can give them one tip when buying a car, one negotiating tip when buying a used car, what do they need to know?
I get hit up on this a lot, and the automotive industry has changed a lot. It's not what it was even 5 years ago, right? So a lot of the plays are different. You used to be able to negotiate, if you will, with these folks and or with these dealerships, and you can't really do that anymore because the margins are just so skinny on if you're it depends on if you're going used or new, of course. But I would say like the biggest thing is honestly your trade-in. That's where I find most people just don't understand the value of it and ultimately what they can get for it if they were just to sell it on their own. There's tons of different services out there today, like CarMax and the various institutions that essentially will put a bid on your car. Well, just sell it to them, take the money, and then to go buy the vehicle that you want, right?
Interesting. Okay. Well, and especially right now, the market's all upside down with the chips that the auto dealers need. And so, all right, we won't go down that rabbit hole. So, but thank you for the tip.
Yeah.
Okay. So when back to, when you were growing up, you said you wanted to be an entrepreneur, which is awesome. I wanted to be Batman. So, one of us is living their childhood dream. The other one still, TBD here, but working on it. Your idols, I think it's really interesting. Your idols are Mark Cuban, Mark Zuckerberg, guys like that. That's so interesting. Like, what was it about guys like that just captured your interest?
Yeah, great question. For me, it was, I grew up in small town Indiana, right? And, the biggest idea there was open an automotive dealership or open a restaurant or, something like that, right? Traditional cookie cutter type business model. I looked up to Mark and both Marks and the various entrepreneurs that were more, just contemporary, right? They're doing things that have never been done before, and that always intrigued me. I wanted to I wanted to be able to go and make a huge impact in this world and do things that people have never done before. So that's kind of what always stood out to me, I guess.
That's awesome. Definitely a huge Mark Cuban fan. Hoping he runs for president here at some point. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Awesome, man. So let's transition a little bit. So you moved to Charleston. We're gonna let's zip through what you kind of have been doing up to this point, and then what your current full-time job is.
Yeah. So what I'm doing today, I'm the founder of a couple different companies, or really a slew of them, but the primary company that I'm the CEO of now is called SassyRealEstateInvestors.com. What that is it's a real estate community focused on software and IT professionals that have an interest in investing in commercial real estate. So we're about to launch a community that's going to launch in August, where we're going to congregate those software and IT professionals together. We're going to grow together. We're going to educate each other. We're going to provide resources and content. It's a complementary community that, if you're in that field, you can opt into. So that'll launch in August. There's also some other things that we'll be launching with that, such as, masterminds and various things that will come along with that. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Like, as we speak today, I'm finishing up some stuff to launch that for August. But in conjunction with that, that's correlated to that is commercial real estate holdings that I own. So I'm a multifamily investor. I focus in the Midwest, hence my background, which is Indiana and Illinois primarily right now. I have about 500 apartment doors, worth about $40 million, and over $4 million of annual revenue or annual gross income right now. So,
so let's unpack some of that.
Yep.
Okay, first of all, so Sassy Real Estate Investors.
Yep.
The name, I assume the name didn't come from because you guys wear a bunch of bright colors and spunky outfits and run around giving each other attitude.
You caught me.
Today's an off day.
Yeah.
So what's the name all about?
Yeah. So the acronym SASSY, SAASY. SaaS stands for Software as a Service. So it's an acronym that anyone in the software industry would know, right? So we are, we're going after a specific target audience, and because they have kind of growing pains that a lot of people don't have, which is typically high discretionary income. They have a full-time gig that they typically love. They like doing software typically, right? But they don't have the time. They don't have the time to figure out, where do I deploy this additional discretionary income after I've maxed out my 401k and my IRAs and I got enough cash in the bank. What do I do with that surplus income, right? So we're going to come alongside those folks and help guide them on how they can use their discretionary income to drive more passive income, so create some financial security and comfort, as well as just generational wealth for their families.
I think that's, we'll dive into that a little bit more as well, but I think it's really interesting that there does seem to be, there's almost like this learning curve. Like when we're young, we're so focused on trying to develop some sort of a skill, whatever it may be, or a couple of skills perhaps that we're going to get paid for, right? Whatever that is, whether we're learning to be an engineer or a salesperson or a doctor or whatever it may be. And then, you kind of move through that young phase. Maybe you're paying off a bunch of college debt or just kind of like getting your life, your foundation set, right? But, when people transition into that phase of kind of, like you said, having discretionary income, having, we've taken care of the house and the cars and, the kids are in school and we take a couple of vacations, like that sort of thing. And now we have this extra money, and what do we do with it, right? Now that we've, it's almost like we don't think that far ahead. And then you're in this situation and it's like, why, this is a new problem. It's a good problem, but it's a new problem that people need to figure out. Otherwise their money's just kind of like sitting there in a bank, not really doing much. Technically, it's going down, with the rate of inflation. And so you're really kind of taking that head on, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate that I had great mentors and folks that had educated me on these investment vehicles, right? And we'll get into, I'm in the software industry still today, but I was part of that subgroup that was experiencing those pains. I have high active income and was saving at a pretty large clip rate, but I was doing all the right things, and I still was left with, which is a good problem, right? I was still left with money that I needed to deploy, but I didn't have a home for it, right? And I was getting hit by Uncle Sam, and that hurt. So, I started to compound good problems, but I really didn't know where to go with it, right? And so that's kind of what ultimately drove me to real estate. Was we all know that real estate is a great investment vehicle for the wealthy, right? It's always been. There's nothing new to report there, but
something like 90% of millionaires are created through real estate,
or own a certain amount of real estate, right? And so for me, it was more out of necessity that I really got into real estate investing. It kind of fell in my lap. Not because I sought it out, it sought me out.
So, okay, you mentioned 500 doors. What does that mean? Just for somebody who's just kind of learning the lingo, what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's just it's each door is a unit, right, or a unit mix. So 1-bedroom apartment, 1 door, right, and so we have about 500 doors, a little north of that, and then about $40 million of assets under management.
Got it. So when you say 500 doors, that's how many complexes is that roughly?
Yeah, so I'd have to count them up, but I think it's right around 14.
Got it. Okay, so 14 of different sizes accumulating to about 500 doors.
That's correct.
And the valuation of the entire portfolio is $40 million.
That's correct.
Got it. And so you started this when?
So I've owned some form of real estate for about 15 years, right? Outside of my personal residence. So I think that's important to note. So I'm not new to real estate in that sense. I just didn't own real estate at the propensity that I own today.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
And so when I started switching gears into multifamily and actually taking this more seriously was in the fall of 2020.
Fall of 2020. Okay.
Yes.
So how many doors did you own in the fall of 2020 when you started doing this?
5.
You own 5.
Yeah.
And so now you own 500.
That's correct.
In 2 years.
That's correct.
Okay. So you bought $40 million worth of real estate in 2 years.
That's correct.
Got it. And so I assume you probably just did the typical 25% down. So you just took 10 million from your savings account, put 10 million down, right? and bought the, and now you're financing the 30 million. That's the typical way that you buy it, right? So I assume that's what you did.
Yeah, you didn't even need me to come today. You could have just told my whole story. No, actually it wasn't done like that at all. And we can talk about that a little bit too, because I think it's really important. It's an important attribute of how I've been able to be successful.
Yes. Let's talk about how someone buys $40 million in 2 years, please.
Well, so, I would remiss if I didn't say, the first transaction actually wasn't conventional. I was doing a lot of research. I've been studying multifamily real estate investing, before I started purchasing, obviously. But when I got to the point where I was actually starting to look, which was early 2020, I just started to reach out to friends and family and people that I knew that I trusted, and was like, hey, I'm interested in maybe buying some commercial real estate, just informing everyone about what it is that I wanted to do, right? And coincidentally, I was telling this to a good buddy back at home. He's in wealth management, and so he works with wealthy clients and has the network that I thought would potentially point me in the right direction of someone that was maybe interested in selling their property, which they were interested. So my buddy, I reached out to him, telling him what I was doing. He was like, hey, I have a client that wants to sell his apartment building. I was like, bingo. All right, when can we go look at this thing? And so fast forward a few weeks, I fly into town. He runs me by the 5 unit that I purchased, and or that I later purchased. And it was a beautiful building, well kept. The owner actually lived in one of the units. And so it was owner occupied, if you will. So he just took really good care of it. And it's a beautiful building. And so I was like, cool. So how can you connect me with? Can we call him and tour this thing, or whatnot? And so he came down like a few hours later. We toured it, walked it. I said, what do you want for it? He told me, he's like, yeah, I want 350 grand for it. I was like, I can't pay that. And he's like, well, what can you pay?
Was 350 high, or were you just kind of seeing what you what you could do?
It wasn't high, but I just, it was my first purchase, so I was being super ultra conservative and trying to be mindful of what I was doing. And so I just said, hey, look, I can't do 350. And he's like, well, you're a good friend. We're not paying, you're a good friend of my, you're a good friend of my buddy, which is Jason Sample. And
shout out Jason Sample.
Yeah, shout out Jason Sample for that. He actually still gives me crap today saying I owe him a referral fee, but which I probably
he got this whole thing started.
He did, yeah, he did. I should at least take him out to dinner. But yeah, so we negotiated back and forth. Long story short, I said, hey, look, I'll pay you $310,000. I'll give you 10% down, and then I will pay you off in 2 years. And he kind of him-hawed around a little bit, and I think he even took the night to think about it, if I recall right. The next day, he came back, it's like, yeah, we got a deal.
Really?
Yeah, so it was seller financing deal. Like I didn't go to the bank. I just put 30 grand of my own money, if you will, down on it, and then he financed the rest of the balance.
Interesting. So you used seller finance. So you basically just circumvented the banks altogether.
That's correct.
And so you bought it for 310. You gave him, let's say 30 for easy math. So you put 30 down. So you owe this man $280,000 at some point in the next 2 years.
That's correct.
And okay, so then what happens over the next 2 years? Are you just stashing money away and you're going to write him a check for 280 grand here?
Yeah. So no, I'm actually going to bring it. I'm going to bring it back to the bank and I'm going to refinance. Actually, it's something I'm working on right now because my 2 years is about to come up. Right.
Right.
So what's awesome about it is over the last 2 years, I've made over 30 grand a year off the property each year. So I've made $60,000 and which will be $60,000 assuming no major expenses come up. $60,000 in 2 years.
It's basically 100% annual return.
100%, right?
Unbelievable.
And, I know enough about how to evaluate real estate properties now, of course. And so I'll go back to the bank. It'll end up appraising probably around $450,000, $480,000.
Okay.
I owe $279 or whatever. It's an interest-only loan that I have to the seller. So, I'm going to go and, the bank will finance about 80% of the loan to value, right? So do the quick math, say the loan 400, I owe 279. I'm basically going to put about 120 grand in my pocket. Plus I made 60,000 over the 2 year period.
So you'll go back to the bank, say, hey, bank, I have this piece of property and I want to get a loan on it. Please do an appraisal and tell me what you'll loan me. And then they'll appraise it and say, hey, it's worth whatever, 480.
We'll say 500 just for simplicity, right?
500 for easy math. And they say, we'll give you 80% of that number, which is 400,000. So you're going to get a loan from them for 400,000, but you only owe the seller, whatever, 280 or probably less at that point, right? Oh no, interest only. So you owe the seller 280.
Yep.
And so you're going to put $120,000 into your account, buy a boat, buy a new Corvette, something like that. And then now you have a loan on the property and it's kind of traditional financing at this point.
Correct. Yeah. It'd be on a normal amortization schedule, 25-year AM.
That's wild. That's wild. Okay, there's probably a lot more we could talk about with that. We have, I want to transition to a couple things here. You talked about, I think, one thing that's really interesting, and I think this probably ties a lot into how you've been so successful with what you're doing. Your favorite quote. Tell us what your favorite quote is.
How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yep.
By Ed Milet. Yeah.
Awesome. Love Ed Milet. What's why is that important to you? How does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I mean, so what I've learned in my business career is that you don't always have to get the gig right. Meaning, like, you don't always have to, fall in love at first sight with the role that you're in today. In fact, you may get in there and uncover that, what you thought was something that you wanted to pursue and you're passionate about isn't something that you're actually passionate about, or that fills you up with energy, right? And so kind of where I'm going with this is that what I've always tried to do, and because I've been in multiple industries, multiple different careers now, is just give it my all, no matter what, right? In my daily work routine, in my work ethic, in the relationships that that I create, that I establish, the relationships that I nurture, and you start to build a personal brand reputation, right? We talk about this a lot, or a lot of professional development people do. And so people then are bought into you, knowing that, hey, JD, John, Jeremy, they're A players. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to deliver results. And so, it's just something that I live by. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I'm picking up trash, I'm going to be the best person picking up trash, right? If I'm acquiring real estate assets, I'm going to eat your lunch, right? That's just how I go about my day, right?
Yep.
I'm going to do the best that I can each and every day and give it my all. And for me, that served me well.
I love it, man. Okay, we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to do a quick kind of rapid fire here, and then we'll transition kind of into a couple questions I always love to wrap up with. Okay, so rapid fire, what is one of your top personal achievements that you're most proud of?
Personal achievements, hands down, marry my wife. I know that sounds cliche. It definitely is, but let me tell you why. Because I've always been this huge visionary think of Elon Musk, but on a little smaller level, right? My wife just grounds me. She keeps the things that are important in perspective at all times. And just kind of roots me to the ground. And for me, I need that. Otherwise, I would be to the moon right now.
You'd have the entrepreneur ADD all over the place.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Shout out Christy.
Hayes would be, he'd have 3 businesses. He's only 4.
Hayes is, for those that don't know, Hayes is JD's son. Check him out. He's all over JD's Instagram. He's my favorite Crowell so far. Okay. Rapid fire. Number 2, one of your top professional achievements that you're most proud of.
I mean, hands down, building a $40 million portfolio is something I'm very proud of.
That's pretty. I imagine that would crack the top 3.
Yes.
That is pretty impressive. Where does that look? What does that look like in 5 years?
Yeah. So in 5 years, I'll be over 100 million for sure. And I own about 55% of that weighted portfolio. The other part of that equity represents investors and joint venture partners and things that I'm a part of. But really want to maintain that strong equity position, as well as continue to grow the portfolio. So my goal would be to be north of $100 million at 55-60% of the ownership.
Beautiful. That's a sexy sounding number right there. 100 million. Okay. If somebody is listening to this, they're inspired by what you're saying, they're curious, they want to get more into this, where should they start?
Yeah, I mean, I get this question a lot, and the answer is always the same. If I had to go back again and start it over, I kind of use that as an example. I would have went bigger, faster, right? Everyone says that after the fact, when you're comfortable and you know what the heck you're doing.
Right, of course.
But it's true, right? And what I would say is to kind of go a step granular is just to find someone that's doing whatever it is that you want to do, and just come alongside them, right, in some capacity. Even if it's you volunteering your time, or you helping them get whatever it is that they want. But what you're going to learn from those individuals will pay dividends for decades, right? And so, if it's someone wanting to get into real estate investing, go find someone that's doing it. If it's not me, go find someone that is, and say, hey, tell me about your buy box. What is it that you want to purchase? And go hunt the deal down for them. There's a lot of different ways that you can get into this. You can hunt the deal down or locate the deal. You could bring money to the table. You could be boots on the ground. You could raise capital. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways to participate in a deal.
So various, regardless of what your skill set is, what you're saying, there's an application for it within the context of multifamily investing, if that's something somebody's interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met someone that didn't have something to bring to the table, right? If it isn't the intellect of the deal structuring, if it's not the capital, if it's not the location of being boots on the ground, I mean, someone can always bring something to the deal. It's just trying to uncover what that is for that person, and just lean into it and say, hey, here's where I'm strong. This is where I can add value, and I'd love to come alongside you.
Beautiful. Love it, man. 2 more questions. One, who are some of your favorite people to listen to learn from? What sort of content are you absorbing right now?
Yeah, so I'm not going to give the cliche answer, probably name off a bunch of real estate folks. But right now, Alex Hormozi is probably one of my favorites. And I know you're laughing because we share a lot of different content pieces from him. But Alex is just, someone that I look up to. He's accomplished a lot in a very short period of time as well. But he owns a company called acquisitions.com, and it's a portfolio company of, essentially small businesses, if you will, that gross over $3 million a year. And $3 to $20 million, I think, is his kind of where his buy box is. But he comes alongside them, service-based industry or service-based companies, helps them scale, and then they eventually exit or sell off the equity, et cetera.
Yeah, super sharp dudes. Really, really, really smart. Love it. Awesome, man. Last one. If people want to learn more about you, the legend here, the man, the myth, where can they find you? How can they reach out?
Yeah, so great question. So I'm just now relaunching my social platforms, if you will. I've been in ghost mode. I like to say, there's a quote from Alex: walk it before you talk it. And so I've been doing a lot of walking the past 2 years. Put my head down, doing the work, and now coming up for air, where I can share a lot of the things that I've learned over the last 2 or 3 years, and looking forward to giving back to the community. So if you're looking to get connected with me, actually LinkedIn. John Crowell, John, last name Crowell, Crowell, would be a really good place to connect. We're going to be launching that community, which is going to be on the Slack. It's going to be on a Slack channel. For folks that are in software and IT, they would appreciate that because that's what they live in every day. And you can also find me on Facebook, sassyrealestateinvestors.com, and then my personal Instagram, which is just John Crowell. So.
Awesome. And if not there, they'll find you on the water basically every weekend out on your new boat.
That's right. Yeah, we purchased a boat several months back, and I think they said the avid boater puts on about 100 hours per year. We've put on like 50 in like 2 months. So,
so you're accumulating hours as fast as you're accumulating doors.
That's
that
right.
Sounds about right.
That's right.
Awesome, brother. Hey, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hey y'all, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like or follow or subscribe, whatever platform you're on, just hit the button to make sure you don't miss any future episodes.
Yep, and please help us grow the channel by sharing it with someone else who might enjoy it as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.